A man sat down, savoring his meal. Fried thunder dragon meat, just as delicious as he expected. He felt satisfied, knowing he'd found a great gift for the villagers. Meanwhile, in the forest, strange objects were lined up in a circle, sticking out of the ground. It turned out to be a teleportation spot for a horse-drawn carriage. The scene shifts to a carriage traveling to Yolen, a vibrant village in the Western Ural Kingdom. It's June 1013 according to the holy calendar, and the villagers are busy and cheerful. The village's old gatekeeper spotted the carriage and recognized Kakyu, our main character. They exchanged jokes, and when Kakyu tried to pay the entrance fee, the old man refused, saying Kakyu was already part of the village. Still, Kakyu insisted. Rules are like promises to him, and he always keeps his promises. Later, Kakyu prepared a meal for the villagers, who enjoyed it thoroughly, agreeing that his cooking was simply delicious. That night, Kakyu treated everyone to a feast, encouraging them to eat as much as they wanted. When a man questioned if he was serious about serving such high-quality meat and wondered where it came from, Kakyu claimed it was thunder dragon meat, which made everyone laugh at what they took as a tall tale. Alma, a little girl, defended Kakyu, insisting he never lies. Arnau, Alma's father, eyed Kakyu with suspicion, seeing him as a swindler. Dsui intervened, noting that Kakyu's ability to supply such premium meat in large quantities made him a valuable prospect. An elderly man even jokingly offered Kakyu his granddaughter, leaving Kakyu flustered. The room was filled with warmth and laughter, though Kakyu remained quietly contemplative from the sidelines. After the party, Arnau invited Kakyu to stay the night, which he happily accepted. Meanwhile, Dsui winced in discomfort, her baby kicking energetically thanks to the meat he brought. Alma was thrilled with the baby due in about a month. Kakyu promised to return the next month after his trip, which pleased everyone, especially Dsui, who was sure her baby would be happy. Later, Kakyu collapsed onto his bed, exhausted but content. He marveled at the normalcy of his life now, a far cry from the hardships of his past. A long time ago, he died in Japan and was thrown straight into hell for his wrongdoings. Reincarnated as a demon, life was hellish, literally. He faced countless near-death situations with both monstrous creatures and powerful demons. The constant battles between Satan and Zeus didn't help, making every day a fight for survival. Despite the chaos, he clung to life for 2 grueling years, fighting tooth and nail. Eventually, he gained enough wisdom and power to hold his own. Then, in a massive clash between Zeus and Satan, Kakyu found himself caught in the middle. With their epic showdown causing a huge explosion, he thought he was done for. But when he woke up, he was in a completely different world from Earth. It took him some time to get his bearings, but he soon figured things out. Disguising himself as a human and pretending to have amnesia, he learned the language and culture of Yolen village, which he discovered 3 years ago. Now, as a traveling merchant, his new life feels like a dream come true. He often chuckles at his own luck, amazed by how unreal it feels to be living this second chance. After surviving hell, he now enjoys good food, peaceful sleep, and a sense of safety. Plus, the strength he gained in hell makes him a force to be reckoned with in this new world. Kakyu laughed out loud, cursing Satan under his breath, as Alma suddenly appeared in his room looking confused. She had been sent by her mother to bring him water, and with a shy smile, she also handed him a pair of leather gloves. Alma had heard that traveling merchants often get rope burns from handling horse reins, so she made the gloves as a gift. They fit perfectly on Kakyu's hands, and he praised her skill. Alma, her fingers still rough from sewing, was thrilled to hear him say he'd treasure them. Full of excitement, she blurted out that the gloves were for her future husband, then immediately turned red and hurried out of the room. Kakyu was amused, but knew the truth. His demon skin was too tough to get rope burns, and marrying her wasn't possible. Watching Arnau's happy family made him pause. Demons don't age, and he couldn't bear the thought of outliving a human family. The next morning, Arnau invited Kakyu to go fishing after breakfast. As they cast their lines into the calm river, Arnau jokingly brought up Alma's courage in giving Kakyu the gloves, adding that he was jealous. Shouting, He told Kakyu that he wouldn't let him have his daughter, which Kakyu fully understood. He wasn't lolicon anyway. They spent the day fishing and teasing each other, enjoying the peaceful moment. Kakyu couldn't figure out what Alma saw in him. Arno explained that it was probably because Kakyu had saved her life. Alma had been born weak, and doctors didn't expect her to live past 10, but about a year and a half ago, when Kakyu came back from one of his trips, she started eating the meat and spices he brought, and her health improved dramatically. Arno admitted that when Kakyu first arrived with no background and no ability to speak their language, he didn't know what to do with him. But now, Arno, and the whole village, was grateful to him. In his past life, Kakyu had never experienced anything like this. Hearing the villagers thank him was a relief. As they fished, Arno reeled in his line and brought up the main topic. A draft notice had come from the central government, and Arno had decided to join the army. Kakyu asked why so suddenly, but it turned out Arno was a reserve soldier. Recently, demon activity had spiked in the Ural Kingdom. Kakyu, a traveling merchant, had missed this news because he always used teleportation to get around. Erno mentioned that if something ever happened to him, he wanted Kakyu to take care of Alma and Ars. Ars was the name of the baby in Jui's womb, and while it wasn't confirmed, Arnaut was convinced it'd be a boy. His request was just a precaution, as his own father had been devoured by demons. Kakyu hesitated, uncertain about taking on such responsibility, but Arno had faith in him. Still, Kakyu didn't make any promises. A while later, Kakyu's horse-drawn cart was ready at the village border, set to continue his journey. He told Alma he'd return at the end of next month to meet her baby brother. Before leaving, Kakyu called her over and placed a dragon scale necklace around her neck as thanks for the gloves. Alma's face lit up with joy at the gift, and with that, they parted ways. Kakyu traveled through several towns, enjoying time at the local pubs, doing his merchant work, and occasionally exploring ruins. By July, he arrived in Wyverna, the royal capital of the Gizaria Dragon Kingdom. Over the past month, he'd done so well in his trade that he got promoted to an intermediate level merchant, which meant he could now strike deals with nobles. Afterward, he visited a clothing shop to buy some black garments. The old woman shopkeeper was impressed by his swift promotion, and he couldn't wait to brag about it back in the village. However, she also shared some troubling news. The Holy Knights were on an expedition in Ural, Kakyu's home region. Blessed by the goddess, these knights could detect demons and, once every few years, were permitted to go on a special mission to wipe out any hidden demons in nearby countries. It would have been fine if that were the whole story, but rumors suggested something darker. The knights were accused of exploiting common people, falsely accusing villagers of being demons and stealing from them. Kakyu didn't stick around to hear more. The moment she warned him to be careful, he was gone. With Mana Purge, he erased every trace of himself from the city. Something felt off, he knew it. So, he used teleportation magic without a second thought. In no time, his carriage was speeding through the forest. As he dashed out of the thick trees, a distant plume of smoke caught his eye. His heart raced, his hands shook. He took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. It's nothing, he thought. Maybe someone was cooking or burning grass in the fields. But the dread wouldn't leave him. When he reached the village, everything seemed normal. Arno and Alma greeted him, smiling as usual. But it was all an illusion. In reality, the village was ablaze. Everywhere he looked, houses were engulfed in flames, and villagers lay lifeless, consumed by fire. His heart sank when he saw the ones he cared about most. The old gatekeeper, Arno, Alma, and Jui, all lying dead at his feet. Rain began to pour, making the scene even more heart-wrenching. Kakyu gently lifted Alma's lifeless body, his anger and sorrow clouding his mind. He activated his demon abilities, Devil's Eye and Soul Viewer, to replay the tragic events that had just unfolded. The villagers had gathered to tell the Holy Knights they knew nothing of any demons. But the knights insisted they sensed an evil presence and discovered dragon meat, a substance only a demon could possess. The villagers were given a chance to clear their names by revealing who brought the meat. But Arno stayed silent, protecting someone dear to him. In the end, the villagers raised their weapons, choosing to defend Kakyu, sealing their fate. Tears streamed down Kakyu's face. It had happened again. Once more, he failed to save anyone. He couldn't shake the feeling that this world was cruel, unfair, and utterly senseless. Kakyu's anger boiled over. There was no holding back now. Using his devil's eye and soul searcher, he locked onto the fleeing holy knights, following the tracks their horses left behind. He closed in, the path leading him through mountains, until finally he found them. Without hesitation, a spark of light ignited in his hand. He raised it to the sky, and a brilliant meteor streaked across the night, lighting up the land for miles. It hurtled toward the holy knights, the ones who had ripped his family away from him once again. They didn't stand a chance. As the ground shook beneath the meteor's impact, Kakyu's mind raced. 2 years. He had lost so much in that time. Hell had been nothing but war and death. He had been dominated, starved, and forced to fight for survival. He had betrayed, plundered, killed. He had consumed the flesh and souls of others until he was more demon than human. When he first arrived in the village, his plan had been simple. Use the people for information, and if they didn't cooperate, kill them all. But something changed. He found warmth, care, and trust, and with it, a piece of his humanity began to return. For the first time in years, he laughed without bitterness. He tasted food that wasn't stolen. The hands that reached out to him were warm, offering something he hadn't felt in so long, a sense of belonging. But now, that was all gone. The pain of losing it again twisted inside him, and he cursed Satan for taking away even the smallest glimmer of peace he had found. If this was what life had become, endless loss, he no longer cared. He didn't need anything anymore. If everything he gained was destined to be ripped away, then he might as well destroy it all. The demon inside him stirred, whispering in the back of his mind, reminding him of what he truly was. As Kakyu began transforming into his true demon form, he found himself in the depths of his subconscious, face to face with Alma. She tried to stop him, urging him to get a grip, but he knew it was too late. This was his true nature, and there was no fighting it. He apologized, admitting that he had lost everything. To him, they were the only family he had ever known. Alma embraced him warmly, and that simple gesture brought a wave of calm over him. Suddenly, a sound broke through, crying. Slowly, Kakyu snapped out of his demon form, drawn by the cries of a baby. He carefully opened a small box, revealing a tiny, tearful child. Around the baby's neck was a dragon-scale necklace, the one Kakyu had given to Alma. In that instant, memories of Arno flooded his mind, their conversations, their bond. The child was supposed to be born for this month, and here he was, safe and alive. Overcome with emotion, Kakyu cradled the baby boy in his arms, tears streaming down his face. This was Ars, the child Arno had entrusted to him. The one person Arno believed could care for his son. Kakyu had once hesitated to make any promises, but now, as he held Ars close, he swore an unbreakable oath. He would raise this child as his son, to be the happiest person in the world, even if it meant staking his very soul. Kakyu regretted not making that promise to Arno sooner, but now he was determined. Ars would live a life full of happiness, because Kakyu's vow was absolute. Meanwhile, in the realm of Earth's hell, Satan and Zeus were locked in a game of chess, mocking Kakyu for using his soul to make a contract. Despite the taunts, both deities secretly had high hopes for him. Kakyu, a lesser demon, had a power that rivaled the highest-ranking demons. Zeus even warned Satan that if this lesser demon ended up causing trouble in someone else's world, he would burn hell to the ground. But between their banter, the two supreme deities agreed on one chilling thing. The child Kakyu had taken in, Ars, was destined to kill him someday. In the demon realm, inside the Grand Demon Emperor's palace, 3 figures sat on their thrones, reviewing recent intel. A figure with the clown mask confidently reported that his subordinate witnessed a massive explosion caused by a powerful caster, possibly as strong as the Emperor himself, 𝚁𝚎𝚒 Lucifer. The clown added that Insect Lord's direct subordinate had already set up an investigation at the site. Overwhelmed by 𝚁𴑎𝚒, one of his 4 strongest generals, Emperor Zell ordered all subordinates of the demon lords to stay out of it. Hades chimed in, sensing his father's lack of enthusiasm, and volunteered to investigate. However, a female figure quickly warned him to watch his words. Impressed by the caster's ability to remain undetected even from the heaven realm, Zell wasn't sure who this person was, but assumed they weren't an enemy since they attacked the knights. For now, he decided to wait patiently, confident they would eventually fall into his hands. In the human realm, within the Kalamiera Church Nation, a joyful crowd gathered to welcome an important figure. Despite their fear after hearing the news from Ural, the princess blessed them with the goddess's protection, renewing their hope. They believed the saint would find the hero foretold in legend. Sword Saint Zied Kruger remarked to the 58th Pope, Arlaeus de Kalamiera, that the people were celebrating the birth of his successor. Arlaeus felt the heavy burden on his shoulders lighten, knowing his daughter was bringing hope as the saint. Although the aristocrats seemed displeased, there was no time for political conflict. The birth of a saint signaled imminent danger to the human realm. The woman beside the Pope, likely his wife, reassured him that their child would guide the hero. Amid the festivities, they prayed for the goddess's continued blessing. So, here's how the isekai world map works. There are 3 layers, all connected by the world tree. At the top, you've got the heaven realm, home to gods, angels, and the goddess of creation. In the middle is the human realm, with 4 continents, north, south, east, and west, inhabited by humans and demi-humans. And at the bottom lies the demon realm, where powerful demons and beasts live, ruled by the demon emperor. Right now, we're in the human realm, where Kakyu is running a farm. It's been a month and a half since he adopted Ars, and milking the goats he teleported from Yolen village has become part of his morning routine. Ars, now full of energy, is crawling around like crazy, keeping Kakyu on his toes. On top of that, Kakyu's still getting the hang of dealing with baby tantrums. Being a papa for a month and a half has made him a pro at making milk. He heats water in a pan and cools it down to human body temperature using magic. But today, the milk's a bust. Ars' face says it all. Yuck. Depending on the day, goat milk can taste different, so sometimes this happens. Kakyu tries to fix it with nut jam and sugar cubes, but nope. Ars takes 1 sip, then spits it right out. This kind of stuff really gets him down, but he doesn't give up. He tries to change out of his milk-stained clothes, but even that turns out to be a struggle. Raising a kid? Way harder than he thought. It's not like he underestimated it though. He's fought in hell for 2,000 years and mastered thousands of spells. He figured he could handle parenting like a pro, but reality hit him hard. A spell to clean clothes, make Ars laugh, or stop his crying. He doesn't know a single one. It really makes him appreciate mom a lot more. Finally, after all the chaos, Ars falls asleep, looking absolutely adorable. Raising him has been rough, so rough it reminds Kakyu of his time in hell. But the moment he sees Ars' peaceful little face, it feels like his HP instantly recovers. He wishes Arno, Jui, and Alma could see how much Ars has grown. As he's about to drift off, he forces himself to stay awake. He can't sleep yet. Ars is napping, and that means it's time to get stuff done. Washing, chopping wood, tending to the livestock. It's all handled with magic, of course. Lastly, he gets to farming, plowing the wide fields to prepare for planting. Kakyu and Ars moved out of the village. They left Ural and crossed the ocean to the southern continent, settling in a country called Elvrent, deep in the forest. The move was because he killed the Holy Knights, and there was a chance the Church Nation could come after them. He doesn't think they can trace him with magic, but he's not taking any chances. Now, they're living in an ancient elf fortress he found ages ago. It's built into a cliffside, once guarding a highway, but now abandoned. Despite being in a tropical forest, the semi-underground rooms stay cool and comfortable. This place is one of the hideouts he kept from his wandering days before he settled in Yolen village. Now, it's their perfect hidden home. Even though they're tucked away deep in the forest, Kakyu isn't taking any chances. There are people with sharp senses, like the Holy Knights, so he set up a barrier to hide any trace of magic. Back in hell, his house would get demolished the day after he built it, so he's optimistic that if he expands this place, maybe one day he could turn it into a castle. After all, this is the dream home he's waited 2,000 years for. But then, a sudden explosion behind him snaps him out of his thoughts. Rushing inside to check on Ars, he finds the baby perfectly fine, though the roof? Not so much. There's a giant hole in it. Confused, Kakyu wonders what just happened until he sees Ars sneeze, and out comes a burst of fire. Looks like little Ars was born with magic powers. Kakyu was curious. He thought that was normal in this world, but most people in Yolen couldn't use magic. Then, one explanation pops into his mind. Dragon meat. For about 1.5 years, he shared his favorite dragon meat with the village whenever he returned. During that time, Ars was conceived and born. If the magical power of the dragon meat affected Jui's pregnancy, it could explain why Ars was born with dragon-like magic in his human body. Kakyu can't help but worry. Did he burden Ars with a dangerous inheritance? Living a normal life among humans could be difficult for the boy. And to make matters worse, Ars doesn't just sneeze fire, he also shoots out high-pressure water when he pees. To make his life easier, Kakyu created mini Kakyus, small puppets he could control at will. He set them to work on all sorts of tasks, but there was a catch. They only moved when he actively controlled them. No big deal though, he planned to raise Ars by himself anyway. Compared to 2,000 years of war in hell, raising a child should be a breeze. Outside their home, however, a group of goblins lurked behind the bushes, watching. Fast forward 2 weeks, and things weren't looking great. Kakyu was exhausted, holding a crying Ars in his arms. Between milk, diapers, late-night crying, and Ars escaping every 2 hours, Kakyu was barely keeping up. He'd calm the baby, then run to do chores, tend the fields, and care for the livestock. The food supplies were running low, and he knew he had to go hunting or get to work soon. But Ars wasn't making things any easier. A cough would cause an explosion, a laugh could whip up a tornado, and don't even get him started on the water cannons during bedwetting. Thunderstorms when he cried? Kakyu was sure this wasn't supposed to be a second life in hell. Utterly drained, all Kakyu wanted was 1 hour of sleep. Just one. After Ars finally dozed off, Kakyu couldn't help but stare at his adorable little face before passing out right beside him. In his sleep, Kakyu dreamed of an argument with his father. He wanted to continue his studies and pay rent with his own part-time job. His father never understood. He remembered walking into his room afterward, staring blankly at the altar for his late mother. Suddenly, Kakyu woke up with a start, sensing danger. 3 goblins were right behind him, ready to strike. Instinctively, Kakyu wiped them out with his bare hands, but something was wrong. Ars was gone. The crib was empty. The only possible explanation is Ars had been kidnapped right under his nose. Panicking, Kakyu bolted out of the house, activating his Devil Eye and Soul Seeker to track down the kidnappers who had fled into the forest. His mind was a mess as he ran, following their trail. Guilt gnawed at him. How could he have been so careless? He'd been too overconfident, thinking he could raise Ars all alone. Now all he could do was hope Ars was still safe. After rushing into the forest, Kakyu spotted an old man looking terrified and a female elf who was single-handedly defeating the goblins, all while holding Ars in her arms. Their eyes met. The elf was calm, while Kakyu's face was clearly filled with panic. His mind raced, wondering who this woman was, a dark elf and also a slave, here in the middle of nowhere. But his worry subsided as he noticed Ars waving his tiny hand at him. At first, Kakyu struggled to communicate with the old man due to the language barrier, desperately trying to explain that he was Ars's father. Luckily, the old man spoke a language Kakyu could understand. He explained that they were on their way to the holy city when they stumbled upon goblins carrying a baby. The old man then instructed the dark elf, Erza, to return the child to his father. Just as Erza moved to hand Ars over, she hesitated, pulling him back. She questioned whether Kakyu was truly the child's father, her suspicion rooted in the fact that they were in the Volki Great Forest, a place rumored to be home to a fire dragon. This unexplored jungle was far from the main road, and seeing a lightly dressed foreigner with a child seemed suspicious. He could easily be mistaken for a kidnapper. Her doubts forced Kakyu to pause and reflect. Was he truly a worthy father for Rs? He wasn't sure, but one thing he did know for certain: that child was the most precious person in his world. Kakyu's sincerity was so evident that Ursa apologized for her earlier suspicion. With that, Rs was safely returned to him. As they were about to part ways, Kakyu called out to her, expressing his deep gratitude for saving his son. Ursa, visibly shaken, brushed it off, reminding him that she was just a slave. Not long after, Kakyu and Rs went their separate way from Ursa and the old man, but something gnawed at him. He'd been avoiding it until she asked that question. He had always known that Rs only had him, and living this isolated life was meant to protect the boy. But deep down, Kakyu realized it wasn't entirely for Rs' sake. It was for his own. He had been scared of letting more people become important to them, of the pain that would come if he lost them. Kakyu had dragged Rs into this lonely life because of his own selfishness. In his fear, he had kept Rs from experiencing friendships, love, and dreams. But was that really what a father would do? Kakyu knew how it felt to care for others, and even though he feared the pain of loss, this time would be different. He vowed never to lose the people who mattered again. To become a true father and keep the promise he made that day, he whispered to Rs, asking what he should do next. Thinking back to the faces that should have been part of Rs' family, Arnaud, Jouy, and Elma, he finally knew what he needed to do. With renewed energy, Kakyu lifted Rs high into the air, determined to be the best father he could be. He had made up his mind. They would find someone to join them, to become part of their family, as a mother.